Tony, maybe you could weigh in here. Are your biggest competitors beside you, or are they in the incumbents? Where is this fight going to be played?
I actually don't think that. I mean, all three of us are sitting on stage here with zero market share today, Simon. So by definition, I don't believe that we can really be competing with each other at the short and medium term, at least. I think when I looked at getting into the wireless business, I really felt that in order to build a long-term enterprise, I really felt there was a great opportunity to bring a lot of international expertise into Canada and a lot of operating experience and scale. It is a business of scale, and I think Alec rightly pointed out the dominance of the big brands here and the incumbent players. Obviously, their dominance in wireless, but also the quad play that they have, as well as, of course, the regional cable companies will be entering soon, and they will have a quad play. I think that all of that really says an international operator with a lot of experience and scale that's seen a lot of the ebbs and flows of the wireless industry and has visibility on long-term trends. I think is really important. So on a global basis. So I was very focused on that. Secondarily, having an operator as a backer with real financial strength is going to be very helpful, I think, to riding out the ebbs and flows that are certainly going to come in this market. Because I agree with Alex's comment that it's not going to be an easy go for any of us.
Yeah. So let's see if we break the competitors into two. We're hearing two different things. But if we look at the incumbents, question to you all is how do you? Well, Alec, it sounds like you're doing an end run around the incumbents. But how do you? It becomes a matter of differentiation amongst yourselves and dislodging the incumbents. How do you, the three of you, approach that?
Well, I think there's, I actually disagree with Alec. I think that when you look at the Canadian marketplace, penetration levels, the services that are being offered, customer sat scores, I think there's actually room in the marketplace for all three of our companies to survive, if not thrive. I mean, now, granted, I believe that we'll take the lion's share of the available market. I think that's inevitable, but I think that we'll all be okay. There's a lot of opportunity out there to be addressed. When you look at the incumbents, you're absolutely right. They're big companies, and we've taken actually the opposite tack in building our management team to what Alec has done, in that we've stacked our management team with competitors. I've never worked at the incumbent, never been there, and I spent my career competing against the incumbent, as has Tony. And you don't really understand competition until you felt the boot of the incumbent on your throat, right? And what they can do to you. And it's something to be respected, and there are ways to compete. And I think when you look at what we've built, we can compete.
Well, look, I think that understanding the competition is one thing. Respecting them is one thing. But wireless in this country has been around for 20 some odd years. So if you've competed against a competitor, you haven't won, because we have the lowest penetration in the free world for wireless. The highest price per minute anywhere for a wireless call. These guys are very competitive. I think that what's going to happen, I think Dave is right on one point, and that is there is a huge opportunity. There is no question about it. Customer satisfaction isn't as good as it should be, and maybe that's a reflection partly on me when I was running Bell Mobility. But the reality is,
shame.
I agree. I should just bury my head right now. The reality is that here's what you guys will do. If you go up at the upper end of the market, what I call overserved end of the market, you will have a situation where you will cause pricing to be more competitive. They will become more competitive. They will drop their prices to compete with you. Their customer satisfaction will improve. Bell will realize what a travesty it was to send all of their call centers offshore, and they'll start to bring it back so that I can call 411 and actually speak to somebody who understands where Scarborough is. I don't have to spell Scarborough. You will improve them. There is no question about it. But, Fido went bankrupt. ClearNet would have gone bankrupt had Darren Entwistle not stepped in and bought them at the last minute. This has been tried before. If you look and smell like an incumbent, you cause them to become more competitive, and they make it really tough. They put their foot on your throat. And so we think that the right thing to do is to go after a market that they can't or won't serve. And we think that we've been able to convince a lot of people to give us a lot of money, because when they get into the bowels of our business plan, they start to realize it's sound. And that came from having people that came from the industry. So there's no right or wrong. I mean, one of us is going to be wrong, and we'll see hopefully you guys next year at the summit, and we'll figure out where things are at. But I'm playing the odds.
They're improving already. I think we're seeing it already.
Totally.
The flanker brands have already reorganized to talk about what all three of us have been talking about delivering.
100%.
Fixed price plans are out there, no contracts are out there. I think, the reality is that it's going to be a fight, and I think that I personally believe, and I agree with Dave, I think all three of us can exist in this fight. The incumbents are lethargic and large, and we just got to be careful about what niches we surgically attack. So I think the market can be looked at not necessarily about talking about the low end of the market or the high end of the market. I think within all segments of what is designed or defined as these high ARPUs and low ARPU customers, within all of those, within that whole spectrum of customers, there's segments of it that we can surgically attack successfully, all the way up and down the chain.
So if we, but still, I think we've got from Globalive and Dave Wireless, we're hearing of a broader line of attack against the incumbency. How do you differentiate? How do you get heard in a market where there are already 7 brands, and there may be 5 more coming out when you include cable and 6?
I think there looks like there's a lot of choice in the marketplace. I think there's not really that much choice in the marketplace. When you look at what's actually being offered, how it's being bundled, and what the services actually are. So I don't think it's that complex.
So it will be in the details rather than the brand.
I think it's only, when you look at this brand, sub-brand thing, Canadians know that Rogers is Fido. Canadians know that Solo is Bell. They know this. And I think it's actually, when you look at it, how long until the Canadians figure out, hey Tony, if you buy the big brand, you're going to pay a SAF, and you're going to pay all these different fees. But if you buy Fido, you're not going to pay that. I don't think it's that long until they figure that out, especially.
We're seeing it on Soapbox already. I've left all the data that's on Soapbox is out there for the incumbents to look at as well, and Canadians do know. They know that those brands are, really there's only 3 providers, and the knowledge level about that's very high out there. So I think Canadians are really looking for choice, and I think we've got the opportunity to differentiate just on. There's a lot of bad will built up out there as well, and it's not going to, Canadians don't have short memories. I think we're a lot smarter than some people give us credit for. So people aren't going to just forget that the big players have taken, had high pricing and lower service levels for a long period of time. I do agree with Alec that they're going to improve quickly. I think we're seeing them improve already, which I think we should all be proud of as a group. I think all 3 of us have contributed to them improving for Canadians already.
And it's going to be hard. When you look at the incumbents, the folks running Bell, Telus, and Rogers are all really, really smart. They're all really, really smart people, and they will figure out ways to compete with us. So we need to be aggressive. We need to be smart about the way we do things.
Have you been surprised by the incumbents' reaction and the tweaking of their plans to date? And are you concerned that they are stealing some of your thunder as the publicity mounts to the drawn-out launch date?
I think it's a good test. It shows how, I think, concerned they are. That reaction, the extent of that reaction and the scope of it sort of reflects to me, okay, well, new entrants are talking about fixed price plans, no contracts, and suddenly, magically, the flanker brands are all out there offering all those service points and price plans. So I think I do think that the differentiators we have to look for need to be longer term and broader than just hitting a few points. That being said, I do think I agree with Alec that it's a very, very substantial market that the public's attacking, and I don't think the incumbents are prepared. Personally, I don't believe they're prepared to incur. There's only a certain amount of pain they can take because their enterprise value and their businesses are tied to the profitability of those subscribers.
Tony, I've competed with Bell in situations where I took that very position, and there are people in the audience who sat beside me and competed and said, you know what, Bell will never do that deal. We'll go, we'll price this service at this much money, and Bell will never, ever do that deal. You know what? I'm watching them do it.
Yeah, look, they will. What they'll do, I mean, they have the wherewithal to erode their EBITDA for a period of time to keep somebody out, especially somebody who's going after the bread and butter, the core business, the high value customer. You're 100% right. They will do it. What they won't or shouldn't do is really sort of, you know, what's the old expression about, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face? Like, at some point, look at what happened to TELUS. They pushed a little too hard on Kudu. They sold a little too many Kudu customers. And how do you say it? Is it Kudu? I don't even know. That's a bad name. Okay. One of the criteria that I had when we were coming up with a name is it couldn't end with O. Right? So I would suggest to Dave that, you know, Dave shouldn't change to something that ends with O. Anyway, however you say Kudo, whatever, Kudi. Look, they sold too many of them. And in one day, when they announced, they lost 10% of their market cap. Their ARPU got eroded. That's the single best thing that ever happened to us. Because what it said, it's the kind of lesson these guys are going to learn. The financial markets will not allow them to do really silly things.
I agree.
And so look, if you're, take Rogers, 7.5 million customers, I don't even know how many they have, 7.5 million customers. If they play silly bugger with me and they erode their ARPU by say $5, that's 40 million a month, that's $500 million a year straight off the bottom line. $500 million. And if they're trading at 8 times, that's $4 billion in market cap gone. Aren't they just better off waiting a couple of years, letting me consolidate the low end of the market, than buying us down the road for a few billion? It's a lot smarter than that. No, it's not rocket science, folks. You know? In the meantime, we will have raised penetration amongst the working class. Everybody's got a phone and everybody's happy. It's just a better plan.